Yes, welcome to July and welcome to Aging Well. You know, I know people join us from all over, but I can only attest to here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, these are dog days of summer. And I know we're right in the middle of it, but I'm glad y'all are taking a break and coming inside, looking at us on your computer or your phone. It's a wonderful way to stay cool while we're learning and having some fun while we're doing it. We so missed you last month, but you know how every now and then the universe just gives you a signal that maybe you just need to take a break? Well, that's kind of what happened last month. So anyway, but we're back better than ever, and we're so glad you joined us. I have to always thank our team, Tom Roth with our CTSI, Courtney Hayes, with our Pepper Center on Aging, and Audrey Belfaro with our Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. This is the team. This is the Aging Well team, and without them, there is no way we could present this to you every month. So I want to just thank them, but mostly thank you for being a part of this with us every month. So we're going to just jump right into it because we've got a great program for you tonight. Now you're going to notice that the cooking segment is a little longer than normal. It's because the Living Well segment was a little shorter than normal. So we were able to edit everything to still make it fit the right time. But I'm going to tell you, Terrie Gura is a renowned food blogger, and she's right here in Winston. But she was gracious enough to share one of her favorite dishes with us. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's absolutely delicious. So without wasting any more time, I want to turn it over to Terrie.
Well, thanks, Deb, and thank you for letting me be a part of Aging Well this month. I'm excited to welcome everyone into my kitchen. I'm actually quite comfortable having people in my kitchen because I do a food blog called Comfort du Jour, kind of like Soup du Jour, but comfort. And the main point of my food blog is comfort food with a little bit of a twist. So maybe something that elevates a favorite food. And sometimes I like to take foods that seem a little intimidating and boil it down so it's a little more approachable. So that's what we'll be doing today. I'm going to be creating a dish that is healthful, lots of easy to find ingredients, super quick and easy to make, and it looks fancy enough to be on a restaurant menu. So what I call this recipe is Mahi Florentine, and I'll be using today some beautiful fillets of mahi. If you don't care for mahi, it is a little bit on the stronger side. You could also substitute something like grouper. You could substitute halibut, or even a mild fillet of salmon would work lovely here. I would not recommend flaky fishes such as flounder or trout. They would probably fall apart in the pan. But a good sturdy whitefish is going to work really well for you. We also have spinach because it's Mahi Florentine. And I have baby spinach here in a clamshell type container that you find at the grocery store. This one is 10 ounces, and we're going to use the whole thing because you know spinach cooks down quite a bit. So the other ingredients are lemon pepper, tomatoes, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can remove some of the acidity if tomatoes bother your tummy. We have some capers, some fresh garlic, and a lemon. We're going to use the whole lemon inside and outside. So here we go. I already have my stove on, medium heat, and I have a nonstick pan here, so I'm going to go ahead and put some oil in there. You don't want to heat a nonstick pan empty for too long because they can overheat really easily. So we'll get that going. I have another pan a little bit over in the distance. I'm coming to this one later. So it's warming up on a low heat. We'll come to that later when we're ready to do the fish. So the first thing I'm going to do is season the fish. And I'm going to spray it with a little bit of olive oil spray. You could drizzle it if you wanted. And then I'm going to sprinkle it just a little bit with this Mrs. Dash lemon pepper. This is a salt-free seasoning. So if you're sensitive to the sodium, this is going to add a lot of flavor without messing you up. I am also, however, going to add a seasoning that my husband and I found when we were on vacation recently. We're foodies, so when we go on vacation, we look for fun things that we can pick up. This is a combination of salt, pepper, and garlic. So it's 3 easy ingredients, but what I love is they're all in one shaker. So I'm going to hit the fish with a little bit of that too. I'm just going to set this aside. Now this spinach, baby spinach is pretty small already, but I am going to chop this just a little bit. I find that if you chop the spinach, the bite-size bites are actually bite-size instead of some awkward situation trying to shove a whole forkful into your mouth. So I'm just going to give this a rough chop on my cutting board. And one thing that I used to do that I don't do anymore, I don't worry about the stems because this is going to cook down quite a bit. And those stems are not going to be bothersome once they're cooked. So I'm going to shove the first bit of spinach into the pan. I can already hear it sizzle just a little bit. You don't want it to be too hot. You don't want the spinach to burn. And while that gets started on the wilting, I'm going to go ahead with another fat handful of spinach. I call this a fat handful on my food blog because it's as much as I can grab with a handful without losing it all to the floor. So give this one a chop. Give this a stir because I want this spinach to wilt. It smells good. I learned through some research that I did that spinach is actually better for you when it's cooked than when it's raw because there's some compound in the spinach that prevents absorption of the good stuff. So if you cook it, it reduces that compound so you get the benefit of the spinach. That looks great. See, this cooks down so quickly, but it's really a lot easier if you do it one handful at a time than to try to toss it when the pan is really full. So we'll get a second handful in there. And with this second handful, I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic. I don't like to add garlic to a pan too early because it will definitely burn, and that's an unpleasant smell and an even more unpleasant flavor. So I like to wait until there's something else in the pan to kind of be a buffer. So this is about 2 tablespoons of raw garlic. And it will simmer and saute in the oil with the spinach long enough that it will not have a raw, rough, sharp flavor. Give that a little stir, and I'm going to increase the heat a little bit. Okay, so we'll go in with the rest of the spinach. And if you're referring to the recipe, the printed recipe that Deb has provided for you, you might want to note if it's difficult for you to manage a knife, if you have joint issues or mobility issues, one thing you can do instead of chopping the garlic is use dehydrated garlic, minced garlic, and just rehydrate it, plump it up when you're ready to use it. You don't have to do so much smashing and chopping. So by the time the third handful of spinach goes in here, it's starting to wilt pretty good. It's giving off some moisture. One of my kitchen rules is season every layer. So I'm going to throw a little pinch of salt in here. If you're salt sensitive, you can use a substitute or just use less. But seasoning the food while it's cooking has more of an impact than just waiting until the end to season. It helps vegetables especially give off the moisture that they need to give off. The great thing about this is the spinach, as it gives off its moisture, is steaming itself. So I don't have to use a lot of oil to create this dish. The steam is kind of doing that for me. This pan I'm going to turn up a little bit warmer to prepare to put my fish in there. So now the spinach is a bright green, very bright green color, but it's wilted down quite a bit. I'm going to reduce the heat somewhat because I need to buy myself a little time to zest this lemon. Now, if you're going to use lemon zest, which is just the outside, the very, very outside of a lemon, I highly recommend organic lemons if possible so that you're not dealing with any pesticides, and also wash it. So I am just going to zest this with my microplane. These are really easy to use. And I'm going to zest the whole lemon. This is a great way to get a lot of lemon flavor without a lot of acidic lemon juice, because the zest has all the oils. All right, so that's all the zest of the lemon, most of it. Now I'm going to cut the lemon because I'm going to need it for the next part of the dish when I cook the fish. So I'm just going to cut it open, set it aside for now. Now I have a wonderful, fragrant, garlicky, lemony spinach concoction here. And I want to braise it just a little bit in white wine. Now, I don't often have wine in the house, but I do like a martini now and then, so I almost always have dry vermouth. So I'm going to put a little bit of dry vermouth in here. It works fantastic in place of wine in a recipe. And this is just going to be about 1 ounce, which is 2 tablespoons, just a splash. Over the spinach. And just kind of let it do its thing. It's just going to evaporate. Vermouth is a dry, fortified wine. It has some aromatics in it, so a few flavors that you're going to contribute to the dish. But white wine is fine. And if you're not keen to have wine in your food, that's no problem either. You could use an equal amount of a vegetable broth and maybe a little squeeze of lemon juice or a little tiny splash of vinegar. That looks great. See if I can lift it so you can see. It's cooked down a lot. Hard to believe that all of that is just that. All right, so what I'm going to do is switch pans. All right. I'll bring the fish pan over here, and this is where the action really starts to happen. So I like to have all of my ingredients lined up, measured out, ready, so that for a recipe that moves quickly, I'm not scrambling around the kitchen looking for a spice, looking for a ladle, looking for a turner, whatever. So this pan is already getting pretty hot. I'm going to do a twirl and another twirl of extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to add my seasoned mahi fillets. Hopefully this is hot enough that we'll hear a little bit of a sizzle. You should hear a little bit of a sizzle. And remember, I also sprayed the front side of these fillets with a little bit of olive oil spray before I seasoned. That's what we want. That little sear is going to help put a crust on the fish. So all of these are going to go down in the pan. And I am making 4 servings. The recipe that Deb has provided for you is for 2 because that's how I usually cook for myself and my husband. But tonight we have company. Now, one thing that I like to recommend if you are cooking something in a stainless steel pan, leave it alone. Just leave it alone, because the more you mess with it, the more it's going to stick. If you give it time to rest in the pan and sit on that heat, it's going to release itself when that side of the fish is done. So I'm just going to let this be for a moment. Now, you remember I seasoned the first side of the fish? I'm going to season the second side right now while it's in the pan, because I want both sides of my fish to have great flavor. So again, with the lemon pepper, there's no salt in this, so I can use it as liberally as I like. And then a little bit of our vacation find, the salt, pepper, and garlic powder. You could certainly just use salt and pepper. Doesn't have to be this particular thing. It's probably going to be about 3 minutes before the fish is ready to turn from the time you initially put it down in the pan. If you notice around the edges, and I have a hot spot on my stove, so this is the first place I always look on my stove, and I'm going to give that a little spin so it cooks evenly. But generally, when you see that the fish is cooked You can see from the side, the profile, if it's cooked about a third of the way up, it's ready to turn. I'm going to lift a piece. See, it's mostly not stuck to the pan. Don't worry if it sticks, because I'm going to show you how we're going to get all that goodness off the pan. But you can see at this point, it's cooked about a third of the way through. So I'm going to give this a little flip and do the same with the other three. Sounds good, smells better. We'll get the other side cooked. Now when the second side has a good sear on it and seems to be cooked about a third of the way through, I know you're thinking, what about the last third? That's going to happen as it warms in the oven while we make the pan sauce. So I would definitely encourage, don't worry about cooking the fish all the way through at this point, because it will, the heat from the pan will continue to cook the fish even when it's out of the pan. So we're just going to let that get a little sear on it. Then we'll transfer it to a plate. A clean plate. A clean plate, because you certainly don't want to put mostly cooked fish on a plate that had the raw fish. That is a cross-contamination problem. You don't want to go there. These are looking great. So if you wanted to do this in a non-stick pan, that would be fine. I actually like to have a little bit of the fish bits get stuck on the bottom of the pan. The French call it fond, and I am fond of the fond. It's where the flavor is, and we're going to use some other ingredients to scrape all of that flavor back out of the pan, and it's going to end up on the fish at the end. Oh, this looks great. I'm not sure it's ever looked this good. Look at that. Okay. We have 4 lovely pieces of mahi. They have a nice little sear on them. You can see that lemon pepper has created a nice seasoning. Doesn't that look great? Now I'm going to slide this in the oven, which is just set to warm. I'm not really cooking this further in the oven. I just don't want it to get cold while it's sitting at the side and I'm working on the pan sauce. My spinach is just hanging out. This is turned off at this point. Once it gets to that nice wilted stage and the garlic and everything is all fragrant, it's fine to turn it off, but let it stay warm while you finish the dish. Now here's where things get interesting. I'm going to create a pan sauce that's going to use up all of these flavors in the pan. See, it looks like it's a mess. It's not. It's not going to be a mess. There's some petite diced tomatoes straight out of a can. These are no salt added. I tend to use ingredients with no salt added. It allows me to have better control of how much salt goes into the final dish. But if you have petite diced tomatoes that do have salt, just adjust how much you add. So the acidity in these tomatoes is going to help break up the stuff going on in the pan, and I'm going to give that a little assist with my handy wooden utensil, scraping up the bits. I'm going to add some capers. These are the little capers, and here's a little tip. Recipes will usually say drain and rinse the capers. I never rinse the capers. There's no need to rinse the capers. You're using a small amount, and that briny flavor is so unique and delicious. I just leave it in there. Okay, so now we have tomatoes and capers in this pan, and this has really cleaned up. Look at that. This has cleaned up all of that stuff that was stuck on the pan. I'm going to add some more wine, but in this case, again, I'm using the dry vermouth. Use wine if you like, use vegetable broth. And for this, I would recommend a dry white wine, something like a Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, Viognier, Albarino, and now it's a little bit soupy. because of the wine. You see how delicious that looks? So remember we zested the lemon and we saved the rest? Now we're going to use the rest. I love this tool for squeezing a lemon. It goes with the cut side down into the holes. It seems backwards, but what happens when you press this, it turns the lemon half inside out. And it's just fun. And again, if you have any mobility issues, sore joints in the hands, you can use bottled lemon juice if you need to. If you got a grandkid coming over, have them squeeze the lemon for you. When I was a little girl, oh, I don't want to cry. When I was a little girl, part of the reason that I learned to love cooking, I spent a lot of time in the kitchen with my grandmother. Oh, this is lovely. Let me bring this over here so you can see this. It's luscious. It's going to be a rich sauce. It's going to be lemony. A little bit of brine from the capers. And we're going to top this whole dish off with fresh parsley. So while this sits and does its thing, and what I mean by does its thing, I'm letting some of the sharpness of the alcohol in the vermouth cook off of that. So I'm just going to give that time to mellow and get the rest of the bits off of my fish turner and get my parsley. Now, I washed this ahead of time and tucked it into the refrigerator, wrapped in a damp paper towel so that it stays nice and fresh and crisp. I remember the days when I might go to a restaurant with my grandparents and they would always have a little sprig of parsley just stuck on the side. I say, why treat it like it's a side thing? I like to chop it up and put it right on top of a dish. With parsley, I don't like to use the thick stems, so I'm going to pull these off. And I'm going to reserve for myself about a handful, just a good healthy handful of fresh parsley. If you don't like fresh parsley, you could certainly omit this. It doesn't matter. But I do think it adds a nice little bit of freshness at the end. Give that a chop. Okay, so now we can see, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this pan off. We're not quite done, but I'm done with the heat. You can see how luscious, thick and rich this tomato sauce is. But to make it even more rich, and this is what I think is just a fun little tip to make your meal feel like a restaurant dish, I'm going to swirl in a little bit of butter at the very end. I'm using cold butter, mostly cold. It was cold when I started. A pat at a time. And for 2 servings, you're only going to use a tablespoon. So this is not a lot of butter, but it's a big impact on the dish. And I'm just going to swirl that into the sauce. So I'm sure there's a more sciencey way to explain what's happening here, but the fats that are in the butter are meeting up with the liquid and the acid and everything else and just creating a silky sauce. And if you don't care to use butter, if you're watching saturated fat, you could certainly use a plant-based butter. Just use one that's cold. Do that last one in there. And then it's going to be time to plate. That looks luscious. All right, let's plate this. I'm going to begin with a little bit of that spinach as a bed for our dish. Put it right in the center and spread it out a little bit. One thing that I think is great about piling your food on top of each other is everything stays nice and warm instead of having it spread all over the plate. Now I'm going to reach into the oven and get my sauteed fish. Oh, that looks great too. Grab that beautiful filet. right on top. You can see where this is going. And spoon some of that sauce over the fish. Turn it this way so you can really see it. Oh, so yummy. And then just a little bit of parsley. And that is Mahi Florentine. Piping hot. Fancy, but easy. Enjoy.
You know, I want to thank Terrie and Les for having us over because she not only graciously agreed to do the cooking segment, but we were the ones she had over for dinner. So again, thank you so much. It was delicious. And guys, I got to tell you, the dish is fabulous. So anyway, I would encourage you to use that recipe and try it out and follow Terrie's food blog, Comfort du Jour. And now we have a very short segment, but a very cool segment from Emily Baker. She is the manager of community and academic learning at Ranolda House Museum of American Art, telling us about something very fun that's going to happen on July 23rd. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily.
Thanks, Deb. It's great to be part of Aging Well. Ranolda House, the historic home of R.J. and Catherine Reynolds, was finished in 1917 as part of a larger estate that included a farm and formal gardens. The home remained a private residence until the 1960s, and in 1964 it became a nonprofit institution for arts and education. In 1967, Barbara Babcock Millhouse, the granddaughter of R.J. and Catherine Reynolds, founded Ranolda House Museum of American Art with just 9 works of art, including 2 paintings by the Hudson River School artists Frederick Edwin Church and Albert Bierstadt. Today, the permanent collection includes several paintings by Hudson River School artists. Additionally, Ranolda has a sublime painting by Hudson River School artist John Frederick Kensett on loan from Art Bridges, which is a nonprofit that supports access to American art and encourages partner institutions to strengthen their relationships with local audiences and organizations. The Hudson River School was a group of 19th century American landscape painters who celebrated the natural beauty of the United States. Their works emphasize the wilderness and the sacredness of nature, often centering themes of exploration and the tension between nature and man. John Frederick Kensett is an important figure in the second generation of Hudson River School artists. While Ranolda's collection includes spectacular landscapes by Thomas Cole, Frederick Church, and Albert Bierstadt, Kensett's Beacon Rock Newport stands apart as a marine scene. The painting's geographical location and artistic approach introduce different subject matter and an opportunity for Ranolda to expand its story of the Hudson River School artists. This work is on view until September 30th. As part of the Art Bridges funded learning and engagement program, Museums Without Walls, I will lead a program at the Mary Alice Warren Center in Louisville on July 23rd at 10 a.m. A brief art history lesson and close looking at reproductions of the Hudson River School paintings will be followed by an art activity that fosters creative thinking and exploration. No art experience is required.
And I will tell y'all, it was on the promo that I sent you to register for this. It's free, but they do ask if you could please register by calling the Shepherd Center. And I'm going to give you that number. I should know it, but I don't. 336-748-0217. And again, that number and contact information was on the flyer that I sent everybody for tonight's session. So let's get down to the business of our skin. I was, I guess, a little surprised. I hadn't thought about it that our skin is the largest organ of our body. And it's also a kind of telltale of, it can be a telltale of what other issues, if we're having other health issues, are often reflected through our skin. And so tonight, by popular demand, Dr. Christine Ahn, who is an assistant professor in departments of both dermatology and pathology at the Wake Forest University School of Medicine, is going to be talking to us about how we can best protect our skin to protect our bodies and maintain great health. Because remember, it's all about living well and aging well. So, Dr. Ahn, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you so much for having me again. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I thought that the timing today was pretty perfect because today happens to be World Health Skin Day. And so I titled this presentation, No Health Without Skin Health, because that's sort of their catchphrase this year. And I have no relevant financial relationships to disclose. So again, today is World Skin Health Day, and this is an annual global initiative that takes place on July 8th, and it's led by the International League of Dermatologic Societies and the International Society of Dermatology. And the purpose of the day is to raise awareness about the importance of skin health and to encourage people to act on ways to improve your skin health. So the theme this year was No Health Without Skin Health, and it's emphasizing the critical role that the skin plays in overall health and well-being. We want to highlight the impact of skin diseases, which affects over 1.8 billion people worldwide, and advocate for better access to dermatologic care. And the day is dedicated to raising awareness about the importance of skin health and encouraging actions to improve it. So I thought I would go through some common myths about the skin and what are the facts behind those myths. So myth number one is that natural ingredients are better for the skin. I think that this is a really common perception about natural ingredients, and we certainly get asked about it a lot in dermatology. But I wanted to highlight that natural ingredients are not always better. Again, it's a common belief that natural or quote unquote organic skincare products are always better and safer for the skin. But it's important to note that some natural ingredients like essential oils can cause irritation or allergic reactions to sensitive skin. Remember, nature is not always kind to our skin because remember where poison ivy comes from. Some other examples are natural remedies that are used for really common skin conditions like acne. So tea tree oil is a more natural approach or remedy for acne, but comparing the efficacy or the effectiveness against acne with compounds like benzoyl peroxide or salicylic acid, you can really see a difference usually in effectiveness of these. There was also a study where researchers looked at the websites of 3 national grocery and drugstore chains, and they looked specifically at skincare products that were labeled as natural. And when they looked at all the ingredients, they saw that over 94% of products had at least one known contact allergen, and 90% had an ingredient ranked in the top 100 most clinically prevalent allergens, which means that these are ones that most commonly cause skin irritation or reactions. So here are just some examples of what is called, an organic or natural product. And while this product may be perfectly safe and, nothing against these products, it's important to look at the ingredients. For instance, frankincense oil is an essential oil, and it's a really common allergen for people with sensitive skin. Another one I had fun looking up was this pure almond and vanilla body butter. So organic tallow, I don't know if you've heard about this or read about it, but it's sort of all the craze these days. On social media, it's really blowing up of using cow tallow or beef tallow for the skin. And so this product is sort of advertising itself as using organic tallow from grass-fed cows. There's coconut oil, mango butter, shea butter, olive oil, all these things that you can think of that are going to be really good for the skin. But in fact, these things are very thick. Organic tallow in particular is animal fat derived, and so they're very good at actually clogging pores and possibly precipitating acne or making your pores kind of enlarged as things sort of go down into the pore and stay there. So that was myth number 1. Myth number 2, which sort of links into the previous segment that I did during Skin Cancer Awareness Month, was that you don't need sunscreen on cloudy days. And so I will challenge that myth with the fact that you do need sunscreen even on cloudy days. The UV penetrates through clouds, glass, and most clothing, leading to skin damage regardless of the weather. And we know that 80% of UV rays penetrate through the clouds. So my overall recommendation to patients when they ask me for kind of like a generalized blanket statement is that a minimum SPF 30 to the face every day will serve you really well. And the way that I like to do it is to look for a product that has a daily moisturizer and an SPF worked into it that your skin can tolerate. And I think once you find that product, just stick to that product, and it's good to work it in that way into your daily regimen. It's important to protect against both UVA and UVB, which are responsible for premature aging of the skin, hyperpigmentation, and an increased risk of skin cancer. One thing that I mentioned previously too was looking at the UV index. If you look on your Apple phone and check the weather, as I think a lot of people do, if you actually scroll down a little bit, you will get a predicted UV index for that day along with the other weather conditions. And when we look at the UV index, it will give you some guidance of what to do in the setting of those UV indices. So anywhere from the 3 to 7 range, there's moderate to high UV levels, and there is a risk of sun damage, and so sun protection is required. And then when we get to 8 or above, that's when it's very high to extreme UV levels. And days like these days, as Deb has mentioned, we are really in the dog days of summer, and these are the days where the UV index gets up to 9, 10 here in Winston-Salem. And the greatest thing here is not only sun protection, but trying to avoid being out in direct sun exposure during those peak hours of the day. And above it, you can see what the different things that UVA and UVB do. So UVA causes a type of sun damage that is responsible for skin damage over time. So sometimes it's really the stuff that you don't see on the day-to-day. It may not affect the pigmentation of your skin, but it goes down deeper. And so it sort of degrades your collagen or weakens your collagen, replaces it over time. This is a picture that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine back in 2012, and it was a really impressive and impactful photo because it illustrates a lot of points here. One is that this patient, he was a truck driver for his entire career. And so he would probably say, you know, I haven't really been out in the sun that much. I mostly just drive my truck. But you can see a clear disparity on the left side of his face with the UV radiation coming through the glass of the car, and the right side of his face, which was overall photo protected. And you can really see what he would have looked like on the right side at the age of 69 if he had had a little bit more sun protection throughout his adult life. but it was a really impressive photograph that I think was circulated pretty widely, not just in the dermatology community, but in larger range news outlets, because it was just such a stark contrast and a really good illustration of what the sun can do to the skin. So myth number 3, I hear this a lot as well, but it's better to bathe less for dry skin. And what I always tell patients is that you should bathe whenever you need to, whenever you want to, but there are ways to modify your baths or your showers for sensitive or dry skin. But dry skin is not due to water drying it out. Dry skin is due to your actual skin being impaired. So there's an impaired skin barrier. And just like there's another sort of related myth that you can drink water to improve the moisture of your skin, it's not exactly how that translates. So drinking water alone does not improve dry skin, and baths alone do not make the skin dried out. If you think of the skin as a brick wall, dry skin occurs when the intercellular matrix, or the mortar between the bricks that's holding these skin cells together, is depleted or damaged, allowing water to pass through, either to be lost to the surrounding environment. And the one good thing about baths is that your skin is the most absorbent after a bath. So you can take advantage of this actually by taking daily baths, showers, or anything, and using that time after you come out of the bath to put on any medications or moisturizers. So my recommendation, especially for patients who are prone to very dry skin, especially when we're in the winter, when the humidity drops really low, with the heat being on in the house, it's really easy to get to that dry, scaly, itchy skin. But my recommendation is after you take a shower, you pat dry. You don't kind of rub up and down. You just gently pat dry. And this is a time where you coat yourself head to toe with a moisturizer. But then the question becomes how to choose a moisturizer. And so moisturizers are made up of 3 different types of ingredients, and they can be in any combination here. But these are sort of the different characteristics to look for. So number 1 is a humectant. These are substances in moisturizers that help attract moisture. So look for things such as ceramides, glycerin, sorbitol, hyaluronic acid, and lecithin. The second type of ingredient is an occlusive ingredient. These are ones like petroleum jelly or Vaseline, silicone, lanolin, and other oils that help seal moisture within the skin. And then there are emollients. These are products that have oil, water, and an emulsifier, which keeps those two from separating. It holds that all together, and they're lighter and easier to apply than petrolatum or oils. Sometimes if your skin is really dry, I will recommend putting on something like an emollient and then putting an occlusive on top of that to sort of help seal that in to the skin. So here's a sort of chart review of the humectants, emollients, and occlusives and what to use them for. So the humectants, again, they pull water into the skin. They're good for oily or combination skin or just very dry skin. And the common ingredients here are glycerin, hyaluronic acid, sorbitol, urea, and aloe vera. Emollients help restore the skin barrier to soften the skin texture, and they're good for dry skin or skin with fine lines and wrinkles. And look for ingredients like lipids and oils, colloidal oatmeal, shea butter, and isopropyl palmitate. Occlusives, as I mentioned in the last slide, create a barrier over the skin to trap in the moisture. And this is good for super dry or damaged skin. And this is when we're looking at different waxes, dimethicone, lanolin, mineral oil. So let's look at a couple of products here. This is one that's really commonly encountered in drugstores or in even grocery stores. But this is one, if you're looking at the ingredients, it has glycerin. It also has dimethicone. And it has all these other ingredients too that are really nice, like hyaluronic acid, niacinamide, which helps with redness. And so this would be a really good moisturizer for deep hydration or very dehydrated skin. Here's another example of a moisturizer that has emollient and humectant properties. You see in the ingredient list here, it has glycerin. It also has ceramides, which are the proteins that are often lacking in eczema. And it also, those are kind of what makes up the mortar between the bricks of our skin. So it's important to replenish what is lost. And that's something that is lost in eczema. These are more along the lines of those occlusive agents. So this CeraVe Healing Ointment has a lot of petrolatum. It also has the essential ceramides and hyaluronic acid to give you the other features of a moisturizer, but it has that petrolatum occlusive component as well. So this can act as both, replenishing the skin while also providing a barrier. This one, the Cicaplast Balm, this is also an occlusive agent. As you can see, the dimethicone, that's another skin protectant and occlusive barrier similar to petrolatum or petroleum jelly. So just some common options out there, and really just to raise awareness of looking at ingredient lists with a little bit more of a critical eye. Myth number 4, acne is a teenage problem that you grow out of. While it's true that acne is more common in young adults, it can affect all ages. Acne is often associated with adolescence and young adulthood, but it can affect people of all ages, and we see it all the time. Adult acne is a common issue, especially among women, due to hormonal changes related to menstruation, pregnancy, or menopause. We do know that stress, diet, and even medications can cause acne in adults. And I wanted you to take away from here that there are various treatment options for acne that you can explore with your dermatologist. But acne is the 8th most common disease globally, affecting 85% of young adults. And here's just sort of a diagrammatic view of tips for treatment of acne. You can try some over-the-counter acne treatments, and I think developing a consistent skincare routine is important. But at the end of the day, if these things don't work, it's important to talk to a dermatologist about how some of these regimens can be adjusted, or if prescription medications are right for you. Myth number 5, oily skin does not need moisturizer. This is one that I hear a lot, but oily skin still needs moisturizer. Oily skin is not due to excess moisture. Oily skin is actually due to a lack of balance in the skin. And actually, excess oil that's produced by the skin can be a sign that your skin is actually dehydrated. Oily skin has nothing to do with what you are or aren't doing. It's largely genetic. It has to do with your hormones and the makeup of your oil glands and hair follicles. It's sort of genetically programmed into your skin. So over-drying cleansers or exfoliating agents, they can actually strip the skin of the natural oils and lipids, and it triggers this cycle of dehydration that can irritate the skin and make chronic oiliness worse. Your skin is really smart, and so whatever you take out, it sort of tries to compensate. So if you try to strip away the skin from its natural oils, your skin will compensate by producing more oil and probably too much oil. So the trick here is to look for a moisturizer that's good for oily skin, which is a true oil-free moisturizer. And here are some examples. The La Roche-Posay for oily combination skin. It has those ceramides, which is great for replenishing the skin, and niacinamide, which is a nice ingredient that diminishes redness and kind of plumps up the skin. The other one, this one by CeraVe, the Oil Control Moisturizing Gel Cream. A lot of time the gel substances are better for oily or combination skin because they end up giving you like a smooth finish rather than that greasy feel to it. This one I love. The myth was expensive skincare products are better. And the myth buster is that expensive skincare products are not always better. The difference a lot of times between an affordable moisturizer versus an expensive moisturizer is marketing, packaging, and sometimes proprietary ingredients. And so I'll put an asterisk there, that some proprietary ingredients may be worth spending a little bit more for, depending on what it is. But overall, it depends on what you want to get out of your moisturizer. I think where a lot of the expensive products come into play is the anti-aging ingredients. And what we have found that if you're looking at the ingredients themselves, those that are known and supported in the dermatologic community to actually be effective, you really rarely need to spend more than $30 to $50 for any individual product. So I went through some of the best anti-aging ingredients that are clinically proven according to dermatologists. And the number one thing is sunscreen, which I know I've probably harped on by now, but sunscreen, up to 80% of the visible signs of facial aging come from sun exposure. Retinoids are the number two ingredient that we recommend looking for. And this is an ingredient that works to stimulate cell turnover and increase our skin's natural collagen production. If you wanted to stay away from retinoids, or retinoids are irritating, there is a substance called bakuchiol, which is a natural derivative of retinol that also stimulates cellular turnover and increases the skin's existing collagen production. But they're sort of linked. They're all still vitamin A derived. Vitamin C has gained a lot of traction in the last decade, and it's because it's a really great antioxidant. So it does more than just anti-aging. It works really well with sunscreens to protect the skin from UV and free radical damage. And that translates to UV radiation and DNA damage that can help trigger or hasten the development of skin cancers. So vitamin C is a great product to look for. Ferulic acid also neutralizes free radicals. Those are the things that are the byproducts from UV radiation. And so this is another thing that works well with vitamin C, works well with sunscreen to protect the skin from UV radiation. Peptides, they can help with anti-aging. I think a lot of products will sort of advertise that they have these different peptides. Apparently, they work the best for anti-aging around the lips in particular, because our lip skin or mucosa is different from the skin on our face, and so it absorbs it really well. And so that's my best guess of why peptides work better in this area. Hyaluronic acid is very commonly worked into lots of very affordable products. It helps to hydrate the skin and also has secondarily a plumping effect. Ceramides, we've talked about how ceramides will help keep the skin barrier intact. This also contributes to a complexion that's firmer, more hydrated, and overall more youthful looking. Exosomes and polyglutamic acid are newer ingredients that I haven't seen as much of. And there are specific products that will say that they have exosomes or polyglutamic acids. These are probably more towards those proprietary ingredients that I was talking about that may be a little bit more pricey, something to explore if you'd like, but really my main focus will be sunscreen, retinoids, and maybe some vitamin C. And then myth number 6, my last one and most important, you need to have a skin problem to see a dermatologist. And I will challenge that and say that you do not need to have a skin problem to see a dermatologist. I think as dermatologists, as gatekeepers of skin care, we are here for preventative measures as well. So dermatologists are experts and trained in skin, hair, and nails with many different roles. And skin health is important, which I hope that I've sort of outlined today. But reasons to seek dermatologic care can be possible skin cancer, a chronic skin condition, but even if you're unsure about what skincare you're using or what you should use, and then especially preventative care, because preventative care is really our goal in dermatology. So that's all I have today. I think I see a couple of Q&A questions, which I will be happy to address. Okay. So one of them was thoughts on vitamin C oil or serum. So yes, I talked about vitamin C as being a really great agent to add into your skincare routine. The one thing to look out for vitamin C is that I would try to purchase it from a like a sort of reputable or dermatologist recommended brand, because vitamin C at its core is a very unstable compound. And so it can't be necessarily mixed effectively with any sort of ingredients. It needs to be mixed in a controlled setting. So it needs to be stabilized. Vitamin C that comes as an oil is okay in a clear bottle, but vitamin C that comes in a serum, like mixed with other ingredients, it's usually recommended that it comes in a pump form. So it's like airtight and also not open to light, because it will degrade vitamin C. Thoughts on the red light therapy wands? I don't have a whole lot of experience with them. They're very expensive a lot of the times. I think we're starting to see more affordable at-home red light therapies. They can help with acne and fine lines. So I think that they can be helpful, but I don't think that alone, without sunscreen, a topical retinoid, and or vitamin C, that they are as effective. I think a combination approach is going to be best.
And another question would be, what about body exfoliants? Are we helping or hurting our skin when we use these scrubs?
Yeah, I think occasional body exfoliants are fine. You are basically sloughing off any dead skin cells, which I think is actually good to do every now and then, especially if you're prone to getting a little bit of buildup. However, I would never recommend doing an exfoliant without following it up with a deep hydration, because you are stripping that top layer of skin, the stratum corneum, that creates a waterproof barrier. So when you strip that away, your skin is like the most vulnerable, but it's also the best condition to hydrate and reintroduce moisturization.
Okay. And another question in the Q&A is there any help for thin skin that tears easily?
Yes, this one is hard. I wish I had a really good answer for this. There have been conflicting studies, because the reason that we have thin skin that tears easily is because of collagen breakdown. So if you remember the UV radiation, the UVA that goes down deeper into the dermis, that second layer of the skin, that is where collagen is produced, and collagen basically suspends our blood vessels. But if you think about over time, the collagen gets wispier, it gets thinner, it gets weaker. Our blood vessels are suspended without a nice tight matrix. And so minor trauma will cause those blood vessels to get traumatized and leak blood cells. And that's what translates to minimal trauma. Your dog kind of just barely scratching you and bumping into something, causing you to get lots of bruising. So what can we do to build back that collagen? Some of the products that I mentioned that are aimed towards rebuilding collagen, like hyaluronic acid, those can be helpful. There's one product, amlactin, that has ammonium lacthydrin. That was one that was shown in some studies to increase or boost the collagen, strengthen the collagen that holds those blood vessels in place. So those are things that can be helpful. But if you think about a combination of other factors, like if you're on blood thinners, if you are on any medications that thin the skin, it can be challenging. You can be sort of fighting an uphill battle there. So I wish I had a better solution for that. But anything that helps boost collagen, I would say, is going to be the most effective.
Another question is, since we talked exfoliants, what about dry brushing?
Ugh, um, dry brushing, I think, can be a little bit more traumatic than helpful. Just because it can be harsh on the skin.
Okay. Very good. Well, not very good that it's hard on the skin, but thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. I think we have gotten through the questions. And Dr. Ahn, as always, thank you so very much for sharing this powerful information with us. And it's sessions like this that to me are the value of aging well. The cooking segments are fun, the living well segments are fun, but it's these core lessons that we can learn that to me make it so worthwhile. And speaking of worthwhile, what are you doing in August on the 12th? I sure hope you're back here joining us for our next Aging Well. And until then, please do everything you can to stay cool, have fun, live well so that we can all age well. Hope to see you in August.
Thank you.